Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 163. Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist. Pablo Picasso.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's show is sponsored by Film Convert. Film Convert I used heavily on creating the cinematic look I got on my film, This Is Meg. It helps you give your digital video footage a beautiful cinematic look of film instantly. Whether you're shooting on a GoPro, a DSLR, a Red, an Alexa, a Blackmagic, it doesn't matter. Film Convert has created specific camera profiles for almost every camera on the planet so it can adjust to your footage. Film Convert gives you the power to create amazing looking cinematic images with just a couple clicks. And of course, because you guys are part of the Indie Film Hustle tribe, you get 10% off Film Convert by using the coupon code HUSTLE. But you can try this software for free, guys. Just head over to indiefilmhustle.com/film convert. That's indiefilmhustle.com/film, CONVERT. So I get almost on a daily basis from people wanting to know when This Is Meg is going to come out. Well, I have news for you. Finally, we are releasing This Is Meg August 4th, 2017 on iTunes exclusively. So we will be on iTunes then, but it will be released on August 4th. But if you go now to iTunes and buy it, you get a nice discount. So if you go to thisismeg.com/iTunes, it'll take you right to the iTunes page. And if you guys look, if you find any value whatsoever in all the work I do at Indie Film Hustle, this podcast, the videos, the YouTube videos, all the blog posts, the courses, anything that we do for you, this is the moment where I'm asking you, please go and support Indie Film Hustle. You know, I really worked hard on this little movie. It's been a while getting out there, and I want to show you guys how I do it. And I'm going to be going into a lot more detail in the coming weeks on how I'm releasing it on iTunes, how I got it on iTunes, what our strategy is going to be for iTunes, and how we're going to hopefully break iTunes. And I need your help to break iTunes. And I'll talk about how you're going to help me break iTunes later. But the first step of breaking iTunes is I need you to spread the word on This Is Meg. Send the link out everywhere you can. It's thisismeg.com/iTunes. And do a pre-order. It's $9.99, $10, and you'll get access to the movie. It would mean the world to me, and I really want to get it out there, man. I want to get it out there. I want to show people what we were able to do in 8 days, and just get out there and do it and break those rules. And that is the theme of today's episode: is you've got to break the rules. So let's jump right into the episode today, guys. So I feel like there is a virus out there in the world. I think there's a virus that is affecting a lot of filmmakers in the business right now. And it's a virus that film schools put out there, film gurus put out there, even some film books put out there on how you have to make your movie, that you have to go through A, B, and C, and D to get it, and how to tell your story and how to shoot your movie and how to make sure you get this image or that image. But I think that's the problem. I think that there is a kind of horrible epidemic facing films in today's world, which are passable films, safe films, films that don't push the envelope whatsoever. Very rarely do you see anything out of Hollywood push the envelope. Only the biggest, baddest directors that have some sort of pull that can kind of do it within the system and still make some sort of creative movement forward. But most of the stuff coming out of Hollywood is safe because it's a business, and that's what they want to do. They want to make safe movies that they're going to make some money. It's not going to offend too many people, and it's going to get asses in seats and make their money. And they're not interested in breaking the rules. Not like they did in the 70s and the 80s when they had no other choice to do it. So it's fallen on the independent filmmaker to take the medium forward, to push things forward and get to that place. I mean, when you see films with balls in them, you're blown away. Movies like Birdman, Requiem for a Dream, Memento, Amores Perros, Traffic, Ghost Dog, Tangerine. There, these are just some of many movies that have balls and they go out there and break those rules and do things their own way. But that's how you move the medium forward. That's how you set yourself apart from everybody else. And you have to kind of do that in order to kind of poke your head out of the crowd and stand apart from everybody else who's doing the same thing you're doing. And when I went out to make This Is Meg, and by the way, This Is Meg is not a movie that has a tremendous, like, I'm breaking all the rules in the way I told the story. At least from my opinion, it's not. I do believe that the way we made our movie was breaking the rules, and that's how we were able to make our movie. But when I would tell, industry professionals and industry colleagues of mine how I was going to go make the movie, they scoffed, they laughed. They're like, how are you going to do it? They just couldn't grasp, they couldn't understand it. They couldn't understand the concept of going out with a scriptment and shooting a movie. It was like, it was complete. It was wonderful to actually watch their faces, because their faces would just turn blank. They're like, but how can you do that? They couldn't comprehend the equation of how to make a movie for such a low budget, a movie of any sort of quality at all. And it was mind blowing. I'm assuming this is what Mark Duplass had to go through when he was going, the Duplass brothers were doing when they were making their movies, and the way they still make their movies and they still make their shows in this kind of way. For me, This Is Meg was more of an experiment on how I can make a movie. And if I could make it, if I can be the DP on it, if I can shoot it, if I can make, all this kind of stuff. And that was my personal experiment to see what I can output, what I can do. Can I actually do it? And I think I was able to do something, and I'll leave it up to you guys when you go to iTunes and hopefully watch it, that you'll let me know what you think of it, But you watch a movie like Chungking Express, Christopher Boyle, the DP of that, and of course the legendary Wong Kar-wai. What they did with that movie broke every single rule you could imagine. The way they cut the movie, the way they shot the movie, how quickly they shot the movie, what they were doing. The story about how Chungking Express was made is that Wong Kar-wai was in the middle of doing this monster period historical epic, and it was just taking forever to go through post, and he just seemed to have lost his vigor for the movie. So he's like, you know what, I'm just going to go out and make this little movie in the middle of post so I can come back with a fresh energy. It's exactly what he did. He went out, shot this movie in I don't know, a few weeks. I don't know exactly what the production schedule was, but he shot it fairly quickly. Did not have a script when he went out and shot. It was just kind of like, hey, let's just go out and make something. And he put together this amazing piece of art that Quentin Tarantino it says one of his favorite films of all time. And when you watch it, you'll understand why. I mean, they break all the rules. Like, they use wide angle lenses in close up, so it distorts the actors' faces, and they don't care. They just kind of move forward and start doing things. And that's what you have to do. You've got to make your films stand out in one way, shape, or form, either through the narrative, through visuals. I mean, visually, I think is probably going to be the easier way of trying to make something stand out. To try to change the narrative like a Pulp Fiction did is very difficult to do. That's why we haven't seen many more guys like Quentin Tarantino pop up in the last 20 years. They're very rare. But visually, you can do stuff that's interesting, and you have to learn as much as you can about that aspect of the craft. Learn your lenses, learn your cameras, learn what you can do with your tools, what you can do with lights, what you can shoot, how you can shoot. Once you understand 3-point lighting, then you can break that paradigm, that rule. Just so you understand, back in the day, Hollywood, when they would light a scene, it was perfect. The actors were all looking perfect. Back in the 40s and the 50s and the 30s, the golden age of Hollywood, everybody looked gorgeous, but it looked so unreal. It looked so non-realistic. They're like, well, where's that light coming from that makes her look so beautiful? There was no motivation. And slowly, during the 60s, specifically the 60s and the 70s, cinematographers and directors started to change that dynamic. They started breaking the rules. And then all of a sudden, all of this new stuff started coming out. All these new images pushing the medium forward. It happened again in the 90s with the independent film push, when the technology got cheap enough that you gave it to independent films. Movies like Slacker, El Mariachi, Reservoir Dogs, Clerks, all of these movies that She's Gotta Have It, these kind of movies that broke all sorts of rules, all the studio rules, all the Hollywood rules. But man, they were making better movies. They were pushing the envelope. And that's what you guys have to do. In one way, shape, or form, when you make your movie, you've got to break those rules. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. When right now, filmmakers in general, I think, and the industry in general is this high is it's almost like ridiculously obsessed with the resolution of film, the resolution of not even film, excuse me, the resolution of the sensor, the image, 6K, 7K, 8K, whatever K. We're getting to a point in the evolution of the visual medium that we're now going to get to a point where it stops growing. It happened in audio a long time ago. In audio, you can't make audio sound any better, technically. It's gone as far as it could. Now all you could do is make it 5.1, 7.1, 10.1, whatever. You make it a little bit more immersive, but the quality of the actual audio file cannot be made any better, no matter what you do. Okay, so with film, it's starting to, with digital, it's starting to get to that point. At a certain point, 8K, 10K, 15K. At a certain point, the resolution is going to get higher than our eye. Our eye only gets so much resolution, and it's starting to get to that point. I feel that a lot of cameras, digital cameras and lenses are all too antiseptic, too clean, too perfect. This is the problem that happened with HD when it first came out. You see everything. You see all of the pores on the actors and all of this kind of stuff, and it's not really pleasant to watch. The reason why we love film so much is that the way it covers the edges, it's soft yet sharp. It is something very magical, and there are some digital cameras that can replicate that. The Alexa, the Blackmagic Ursa Mini, I really like. I even like the Pocket camera, shooting that Super 16 digital raw file. It gives your film a little different look than everybody else. If everyone's shooting on a Red Epic or a Red Dragon or whatever Red Weapon or whatever the next Red is, or the highest Canon there is out there, wouldn't it be better to make your film stand out by shooting with a format that looks a little bit different or using lenses that are a little bit different? And I'll give you an example. Someone like Stanley Kubrick, who everybody who listens to the show knows I am a huge fan of Mr. Kubrick. He was one of the most detail-orientated, obsessive directors in the history of cinema. But yet, if you watch some of his movies, if I watch all of his movies, he is not as concerned with a perfect image, but he's more concerned with an interesting image. And that is a huge lesson for everyone listening to understand. If you watch a scene in Clockwork Orange, the scene right before, and spoiler alert, right before the rape scene, towards the beginning of the movie, there's this pan inside that they ring the doorbell, and then they go inside, and you see the guy typing on his typewriter, and then it dollies across, and then a woman's reading a book, and it's just one wide shot, and it's just a dolly across, and then she gets up and goes. Now that take was shot with a lens that is 9.8 millimeters. It's a canoptic lens. It is one of the widest lenses you can buy, I think, to this day, the widest lens you can buy without fisheyeing. So it is an extremely interesting image to get. But if you notice, the corners are soft. Now, that's sacrilege for cinematographers. You don't want soft corners. That's not right. You need to have a sharp, sharp, sharp image. But Kubrick didn't care because it was more interesting. At the very last shot where Rodney McDowell is sitting in bed and all the photographers come in, they use the same lens, soft corners. But the image looks interesting. He does that throughout Clockwork Orange. He does it throughout The Shining. He does it throughout Full Metal Jacket and also Eyes Wide Shut and many of his other movies. He wasn't interested as much as a perfect image as an interesting image that served the story. And that's what I think all of you guys should do. When everyone's telling you you should have a perfect image, the highest resolution possible, future-proof your movies, all this kind of stuff, which is all wonderful and great. And believe me, if I could shoot 4K all the time, if I could shoot the Alexa 4K all the time or the Ursa Mini all the time, I would. And I do with the Ursa Mini. But if I could shoot with the Alexa, I would. But there are options for you to shoot differently within the cost prohibitive world that we live in as independent filmmakers. So now I've been talking a lot about breaking the rules and taking risks and all this kind of stuff. Well, there is a trade-off, guys. If you're an independent filmmaker and you got $250,000, you might be able to take some risks, but you can't go all out because you're risking. It's called a risk for a reason. If you're a filmmaker in the studio system and you want to take a risk, knock yourself out. If you're working with someone else's money and they're willing to go along that ride with you, great. But as independent filmmakers, the more risks you take, the lower the budget should be. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to take those risks comfortably. That's the only way that no one's going to try to stop you from taking those risks. So when I made Meg, I did it for a very reasonable budget. My next 2 movies are going to be very reasonable budgets. Things that I'm going to experiment with. And I'll talk more about my next couple features coming up in the coming weeks. But I'm going to be taking fairly large risks. Why? Because I want to experiment. I want to push myself. Why? If you're an artist, why can't you experiment? That's the only way you grow. If you fail, you grow. That's just the way it is. And it takes balls to do that. You can't be afraid of what other people will say. You just got to go out there and do it. If I was afraid of everything that everyone's going to say about Meg once it gets released, about the story, about the way I directed it, the way it was lit, the way the actors worked, if I was afraid of all of that, I would never have gotten off the ground. I've got to kind of just go out and do it and do me and make my movies. And that's what I'm telling you guys should do as well. Go out and do it. In order to stand out, you have to take those risks. As this wonderful quote wonderfully states, break the rules more often and you'll gain a huge advantage over those who are afraid to risk at all. I hope this episode gave you some sort of inspiration to go out there and take some risks, to learn, to grow as an artist, and just do stuff as much as you can and break those rules. But be smart about it, guys. Don't mortgage your house and then go out and make an experimental movie. Don't do that. Make a movie for a couple grand. Make a movie for $5-10 something that hopefully you can afford, whatever that money is that you can afford to lose if you want to go out and experiment. But go and experiment. And that is the key to growing as an artist and as a filmmaker. And that's what will set you apart from your contemporaries. Now, please don't forget to head over to thisismeg.com/iTunes. It's early bird special $9.99 to see This Is Meg, which will be released August 4th. And on the next episode, we are going to go into a deep, deep dive into vintage lenses, which has become my new obsession. And my collection has now grown of vintage lenses to probably around 50, over 50 lenses at this point. And I'll go into great detail about what I'm doing with all these lenses, what I'm doing, the experiments, the reviews that are coming, things I'm going to be doing and why I'm doing them. But I have an amazing guest coming in on the next episode that is going to break down why you should be buying vintage lenses, why you should be using vintage lenses, and how you can get a set of amazing primes for $500. Yeah, I know it sounds amazing, but I'll go into it on the next episode. And as always, if you want to get any of the things we talked about in this episode, head over to indiefilmhustle.com/163 for all the show notes. I'm going to put links to all the movies I talked about. So if you guys are interested in watching them, they will be there. So keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.